The Play-by-Play Student Sports Network. The best students of sports. Good evening, everybody. It is We're Talking Here, episode 4. That graphic there is slightly off, but that's okay, because not more importantly than the episode number, it is our Major League Baseball preview show. Tomorrow is opening day. I know we are all excited here. We have Alana with us today. Sam Bailey is in the house, as well as William. Julia will also be joining us as well. She's having some technical difficulties, so hopefully she'll be joining us soon to give her expertise. And so the Philadelphia Phillies fans outweigh everybody else. We can't wait for her to come on too. Obviously, just joking. If you have anything you want to talk about in Major League Baseball, post it in the comments, either on Facebook or YouTube. We are live on both, so we're looking forward to it. We have a bunch of segments coming up. As always, our first segment is our interview segment. We go in the industry to interview a minor league baseball announcer who is part of the play-by-play family. Joe Vasile is with us today, so we will be bringing him up shortly.
Hey.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So I want to get right into it. So I know you're currently with the Renegades and the Yankees. So I think we should start out right at the beginning. So how have you what is the path you've taken to get to where you are today?
So I went to school in New Jersey at a place called the College of New Jersey, right outside of Trenton. And right after I graduated, went down to North Carolina to go work for a summer collegiate wood bat league team down there. Spent 2 summers there before breaking into the affiliated minor leagues in 2016 with the Salem Red Sox, the high A affiliate of the Boston Red Sox at the time. I was the number 2 broadcaster there. I was the number 2 broadcaster the year after that with the Long Island Ducks, an independent team in New York. And then from 2018 through 2021, I was an assistant with the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders, the Yankees AAA team. And then starting last year, took over as the lead broadcaster for Hudson Valley.
That's awesome. And I see baseball is a common theme here. Has baseball always been your number 1 sport?
Yeah, it always has been, the sport that I've enjoyed the best. Not that I don't love doing football and basketball and soccer and even volleyball, as sports that I really enjoy doing. But I feel like the rhythm of baseball and the way that it's a lot more free-flowing and relaxed just fits the way that I like to call games the best. And it's what I really enjoy the best. And obviously, personally, I think it's the best sport that's out there. But I know that's kind of a hot take.
I agree with you. I think baseball is awesome. So what do you think of these new rules? I know you've seen them firsthand in the minor leagues before. They've been coming up to the big leagues. We'll start seeing that tomorrow. So do you think this is going to be an improvement for the game?
I think absolutely. As somebody who loves baseball and has loved baseball since I was 5 years old and started playing t-ball, I think that the pitch clock in Major League Baseball is, for as much as I disagree with a lot of things that Rob Manfred does, I think it's the best thing that's happened since the introduction of the DH. It is a game changer. It makes the game flow a lot better. There's less downtime in between pitches. There's less just kind of idle time. There's more action. And that's a great thing for the game and for the pace. And, when you think about it, what we noticed in the minor leagues last year, not only were games about 20 minutes shorter on average, but what you saw was fans would stay later because in previous years, it would be the 7th inning, but it would be 9:30 and people are like, I got to go to work or school tomorrow, so we're going to leave. Now it's 9:30 and it's the top of the 9th inning and people are like, okay, we'll stick around for the end. And I think that that's a good thing too, because most times the most exciting high leverage moments in games are in the 8th and 9th inning. And those were times where fans were leaving and not being able to experience it, or they had turned off the TV if they were watching at home. And I think that it's going to be a good thing overall on the pitch clock side of things. The other rules changes, the shift ban, I don't think is going to make that much of a difference. You could still kind of position a guy right up the middle. So ground balls hit up the middle are still going to be outs, just like they've been in recent years. I think they did a study where in the minors with the shift ban, batting averages went up like 1 point. So it was like 241 up to 242. So it was kind of not a big impact there. The bigger bases thing, I think, is kind of a wash as well, because yes, there's a little bit less of a distance in between bases for base runners, but it's also that much shorter of a throw to get the ball there. So it kind of evens out base runners versus defense there. And the pickoff rule is an interesting one too. I think that's going to be really the X factor of all these changes, because you're only allowed to throw over twice in an at bat. And with that rule in place, we have seen stolen bases explode in the minor leagues last year. In 130 games last year, the Renegades set a franchise record. We stole 230 bases last season.
Wow.
And even the most in the minors, there was a couple teams that were up over 250. So stolen bases have gone through the roof. And I think that that's something that they're trying to do, because it's an exciting play. It's great. And I think that that's going to be a big success as well, to inject some more of that action back in the game.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what it brings to the major league level also now. So with these new rules, have you had to change how you prepare for a game at all?
Yes. Maybe not so much in the preparation, but at least in the way that I've had to execute it on the air, because there's just less time to tell a story. So it makes you really focus on, if I'm going to tell a story, how do I have the best economy of words possible and portray the whole story in a way that I can do quickly, and that people are going to understand what's happening. That was a big challenge to kind of adjust to the quicker notion, but it made me so much better, because I had to cut out a lot of the fat and the unnecessary stuff and just get down to really the meat of it, and focus on that, and making sure that if I am going to break from the action, that it's an important story as well, because there's just so much going on and things happen so fast now. It almost felt like it was going like 1.5 speed at the beginning of last year. But it made me focus on making sure the point was more important and saying it in fewer words in a way that you still understood what was happening.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I love always hearing the stories during the broadcast or watching games. Now, I know that you're working with the Yankees affiliate, and the Yankees obviously has had some great rookies coming up the past few years. So who do you think is the best player you've ever seen pass through the system?
Oh, specifically for the Yankees, so I missed Anthony Volpe. I never crossed over with him, so I will say what I'm about to say. I've never actually seen Volpe, so he is excluded from this. But Jason Dominguez is the best player that I've seen in this will be my 5th year in the Yankees organization, come through the minors. He, for a 19-year-old, has an unbelievable skill set, a great knowledge of the strike zone. I think he has the right attitude to be a successful major league player. He has that certain something about him where you're just like, all right, this guy, he knows he's going to be a superstar, and like, he doesn't act like he's better than anyone else, but he knows he's got to go out there and put the work in to get there. And I mean, that's something that is very rare and special when combined with his talents on the field. And I really think that he's the best player that I've seen come through the Yankee system for sure. And I've seen some good ones. I've seen Glaber, when he was their top prospect, and a lot of really good pitchers come through as well. But Jason is one of those guys that you just watch play and you go, oh, that's a that's a 10, 15 time All-Star that we're watching right now.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like you're in on a little secret that no one else is going to know until a few years from now. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So through the minor leagues, like you said, you've seen a lot of guys go up, they go down. It's definitely intense for the players and as an announcer also. So how are you able to adapt to the quick changes that are thrown at you for minor leagues?
It's it's not easy. I'll tell you that. Sometimes, especially the years when I was in Scranton, we would have multiple roster moves in a day where, we'd have two guys going up, two guys going down, or two guys coming up from Double A. And so it was a constantly evolving roster. And that's where kind of the important work comes in during the off season of making sure that, December, January, February, you're putting in the work of knowing the players that are in your organization, and especially the ones that you may see this year. Like for me in Hudson Valley this year, Anthony Volpe's not going to play with us, unless he gets hurt and they send him here on a rehab assignment. So don't focus so much my energy on preparing for him and researching him in the off season and just gathering notes. But for a guy like Spencer Jones, who was the Yankees' first round pick last year, I don't know if he'll start with us, but there's a pretty good chance that by the end of the year, he'll be with us. So focusing some more time on learning more about those guys. So that way, if Spencer Jones starts in Tampa and gets called up in May, okay, cool. I've got my notes on him. I'm ready to go because I know I have to be able to adjust on the fly. And it's not always that easy. Sometimes you'll get a guy who you just have nothing on, or there's a trade and someone comes in from another organization and you just do your best. The easiest thing I always find is teams are really good about providing information and then literally Google searching their names, seeing if there's articles written about them online or, from their hometown newspaper, and just read a little bit about them. Their college website, if they played in college, is going to have some stuff on them. And then obviously just having a conversation, introducing myself. Hey, I'm Joe. I'm the broadcaster. Happy you're here. Nice to meet you. And just kind of go from there and have a conversation to learn those things out.
So how is your relationship with the players? Do you have frequent conversations with them?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, on a daily basis, I'm down there, and I think that's a very important thing to do as a broadcaster, especially when like me, I'm with a team all the time. Is to be seen, to be visible, and to talk to guys more than just when I need them for something. Those kinds of things go a long way, because a lot of times it's just people talk to them when they they want an interview request, or it's a friend from home, and it's you talk to them when it's like, hey, I'm going to be in town, can you get me free tickets? And it's like just having a simple conversation about like, hey, what'd you have for lunch today? When you're on the road, like, oh, you went over to that Chick-fil-A that's right across from the hotel, so did I. Like having those kind of conversations and just building a relationship outside of the actual sport and outside of the actual game, I think is a very important thing. And I try to make sure I do that every day, or at least that I'm around. And if they're like, hey, my girlfriend didn't like what you said about me on the broadcast last night, that like I'm there, and they know that like, hey, if they have a problem, like here I am, like you don't, I'm not going to hide. I'm going to be there, and I'm sure there's a good explanation. I don't really say negative things that much, but yeah, it's I think a very important thing.
That's awesome. Creating a relationship with players seems, to us right now, I feel like that seems so unique, but I feel like be so special in that role.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's funny. Sorry to cut you off, but like, no, it's funny because the thing that you realize as you get into it is like, especially when the players are 23, 24, and you're 23, 24 at the same time, it's like, oh, these are just like the people I went to high school with, or that I went to college. Like we're just the same. Like, yeah, they play sports, but at the end of the day, we're all just kind of in the same boat.
That's really amazing. So now, if you could think back to when you were younger, and if your younger self saw where you are today, what advice would you want to give to them?
Oh man, that's a good one. The advice that I'd give to myself when I was younger um, is to honestly just keep going. Like I know I kind of said the path kind of very smoothly at the beginning, but it's not always easy. It's definitely not always a straight line to get from where you are starting off to either where you want to be or to where you will eventually be. You hear no a lot because it's so competitive, and you really have to be able to one not take it personally because 99.99999% of the time it's not personal. And the people who succeed are the ones who kind of just who keep going, who keep working at it, and stay committed to doing the right things that it takes to ultimately kind of get to where they want to go. So I think that's where the advice that I give to myself is like, hey, there's going to be these times along the way where you're feeling down, but you just got to kind of get through it, and things will eventually work out for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of us who are interested in the industry could definitely use those words. So before we let you go, regular season starting tomorrow and the majors, you got a pick for the World Series?
Oh man, I should have known this one was coming. So I grew up a Mets fan despite working in the Yankees system for the last 5 years. My heart wants me to say the Mets. Unfortunately, I just don't know if I can. I don't think they did enough to address their third base issues and to get another power hitter into their lineup. They're still the same kind of top heavy lineup that they were last year, which was fine, but it got a little bit exposed in the playoffs. It was a really good team. I think it's going to be a good team again this year, but I just don't know unless they get super hot. I just don't know if they've got enough to get over the top this year. So I'm not going to say the Mets. I'm going to say, excuse me, this year, I'm going to go with a little bit of a dark horse pick. I think I think this is the year that the Chicago White Sox put it all together.
Wow.
New manager, you've got that same core in there for a couple of years. A little bit of a different tone in the locker room. And I think it's going to be a team that responds to it. They've got some really exciting prospects coming up through the system who may be able to contribute later on in the year. And if that's the case, that a deadline move, I think the White Sox could really be contenders. But again, I say that as I'm going dark horse. It's to get past the Dodgers or the Astros or even the Yankees is going to be so hard for any team this year. But just to be different, I'll say Chicago White Sox.
As a Met fan, I really wish you would have gone through with the Mets, but I think the White Sox, that could actually work out. Depending on how that division is this year, I like that pick. That's a good one.
Oh, thanks. We'll see. It's probably going to look hilariously wrong when they finish in last and miss the playoffs completely. Like it'll look like one of the worst picks ever. But that's what I'll go with for now, at least.
Well, we're gonna have to check up and see how that pick lasts at the end of the year. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thanks so much for having me.
And play-by-play camps, a former counselor, and I think camper as well. I knew him as a counselor because I was a counselor along with him. But we're so happy he could join us, and awesome to see his success as he works his way through the minor league system with the Yankees and doing a fantastic job. He got to start, like I said, where he was talking about his college, but he also with play-by-play sports broadcasting camps. And we have another season of sports broadcasting camp coming up starting June 5th. We start in Dallas. We work our way to South Florida, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Connecticut, Denver. We have some virtual camps, so if you're not near any of our camps and you still want to be involved, feel free to jump onto that. Chicago, Atlanta, North Jersey, Boston, Washington, D.C., out to the West Coast with Seattle and L.A. Green Lane is northwest of Philadelphia. It's our summer camp version where we stay at a summer camp, and it's a lot of fun. If you have any interest, go to playbyplaycamps.com to learn more. And again, thank you to Joe Vasile for joining us today. Our next topic, and well, it's a good segue since Joe Vasile was talking about the youngins in the minor leagues. First thing we're going to talk about is our talking topic of the day. It is what prospects are going to make an impact this year for Major League Baseball teams. All right. So back to the four of you, and we welcome Julia to the broadcast. I hope that all her technical difficulties are behind her. I guess we'll find out. She looks a little – oh, there she goes. Now she's moving. Okay, sounds good. She moved. I was afraid she was frozen for a second. So let's talk about those youngsters, maybe some in the Yankees organization. Obviously, they have an exciting player in Anthony Volpe. Let's start with Sam Bailey. Sam, the one that your favorite team was looking forward to, and Andrew Painter might not be getting up this year just with arm issues. We'll see what happens there. But do you have any young players that you're looking forward to breaking into Major League Baseball this year?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, I really wish Andrew Painter was not injured and he could make an impact coming out of opening day. But who I am going to highlight is Anthony Volpe, who you just mentioned. So he was just named to the Yankees opening day roster over the weekend to be their starting shortstop. And he was drafted in 2020, and he flew through the minors, and he pretty much skipped AAA. He hit 309 this spring while racking up a 1033 OPS. Shortstop has been a hole for the Yankees, but I think Volpe will change that for them, and I imagine him to be their shortstop for the next 2 decades, and I think he will be in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. He will bring the Yankees to the postseason as long as Judge and their pitching, but he'll help bring them far, and hopefully they can get over the hump that is the Astros.
All right, very cool. Another team that might interfere with them are, well, Williams, if you couldn't tell his favorite team, the Seattle Mariners, might get in the Yankees' way if they have their way. William, what young player? Obviously, Seattle Mariners had one of the top 2 young players last year in all Major League Baseball. He won Rookie of the Year in Julio Rodriguez. And the other one, obviously, we're talking about is Adley Rutschman, who had come up earlier. Maybe he would have taken J-Rod's Rookie of the Year. Who knows? But who do you have heading into this year that you're excited to hear about or excited to watch?
I got some family down in Arizona, and I am pretty big on Corbin Carroll. I mean, Arizona's a young team. They're starting to come out of their rebuild, and I think that he's going to headline that because, I mean, they already have a pretty solid rotation, if you ask me, headlined by guys like Merrill Kelly. And, of course, there's the veteran presence, although he is aging, in Madison Bumgarner. And finally, their budding ace in Zach Gallen. And I think that with a rotation that's starting to get a bit better, I think they'll probably augment it by trade or signing. But I think that their offense is going to get really, spearheaded by Corbin Carroll in the years to come. And in fact, I have him leading the Diamondbacks to a finish of 3rd in the NL West this year.
All right, that'd be a surprise. Obviously, they've been a team that's been down for a while now, but Corbin Carroll is an exciting young name for them out in the desert. Julia, now that your technical difficulties are on, we can get your thoughts on how you're feeling about this year in baseball, and what do you think about the young prospects that are showing their way through baseball? Julia? There we go.
Technical difficulties are.
Oh, the technical
see Andrew Beer play. I'm definitely going to touch on really how he didn't.
I think Julie's internet's still acting up a little bit. So real quick, we'll just jump to Alana. Alana, let's give your information, and then hopefully Julie's internet works out a little bit. Because she had no problems the other day when she was debating with you, Alana, but for some reason, unfortunately, today she does. But what are you feeling about the youngsters in baseball?
As much as I want to say Brett Beatty is going to make one of the biggest impacts, and I really hope he does, I know he won't be up until at least June for the Mets, I do like Miguel Vargas for the Dodgers. After Gavin left towards ACL, there were a lot of questions on if Miguel Vargas is going to be able to perform at that starting shortstop role. And I think if he can not only win Rookie of the Year, I think he's really going to win over that Dodgers crowd and honestly could take the spot as one of the top players in the league if he can really stand out on that Dodgers team. It's full of superpower, and if they can add one more weapon like Vargas at shortstop, it could honestly, we could all get scared of the Dodgers yet again if they can add another secret weapon sneak in there after the loss of Gavin Lux.
Yeah, I mean the Dodgers. We talk about teams that spend a lot of money. I know we did before the broadcast with the Yankees and the Mets. The Dodgers obviously spend a lot of money, but they have a lot of homegrown talent, it seems, every year that comes up and could produce big for that West Coast team to maybe win another division title. Anybody else you're thinking, Sam Bailey, or that you were excited to see, or and you think anybody that could fight for Rookie of the Year besides the man that you named earlier?
I mean, fight with him, I wouldn't. I personally don't think so. I think it's really his award to lose, especially after all of his production that he's had. And I mean, we just saw it, like I said, in spring training. He was hitting 300, and it wasn't like it was like 20 at-bats. It was over 50 at-bats. So that's a pretty good sample size for him. So I do think it's his award to lose.
All right, sounds good. In the NL, obviously, William, that's where you went with the man in Arizona who is a lot of people's Rookie of the Year favorites. And we'll get your guys' official picks later in the video when we talk about awards. Who are you thinking? Anybody else in the NL that could challenge the man in the desert?
I think that the NL Rookie of the Year is going to be a pretty tight race this year. A lot more interesting than the AL Rookie of the Year because not only do you have Corbin Carroll and, as Alana mentioned, Miguel Vargas, there's also Jordan Walker coming up from the Cardinals. I think, if I remember correctly, it was in the MLB's top 5 best prospects in their most recent list. And, I am not really, I don't know that much about the Cardinals, so I can't say that I know enough about Jordan Walker to give my own personal, serious opinions on him. But, NL Rookie of the Year is going to be close. And I think, Jordan Walker is certainly a favorite to make that close.
All right, Alana. So I forget who you said you were hoping was going to make a big impact with the Mets.
I did say Brett Beatty.
But what about the man that is supposed to be the next great catcher in Major League Baseball? Well, maybe not great, but very, very good, at least, in Francisco Alvarez. There's no love for your Met there?
I know that was a surprise, but I was actually going to go in another direction here. We haven't talked about Kodai Senga yet either. I think if we see Kodai Senga and Francisco Alvarez together, maybe in July, I'd be so happy. Because I think Kodai Senga is going to bring a new feel to baseball with his ghost pitch and some of this awesome stuff coming over from Japan. And then if we can see that with both the talent behind the plate and in front of it with Francisco Alvarez, that can be a matchup to be scared about for other teams.
All right, so somehow we went through a young players talk, and I don't think we heard the number one favorite person for the American League Rookie of the Year, and that's Gunnar Henderson. Did y'all just forget about the man in Baltimore? Julia, do you have any? Hopefully your technical difficulties are fixed. So what were you thinking about young players, and is Gunnar Henderson one of the people that you were going to talk about?
Okay, I think I figured everything out. This is the third computer I've tried tonight, so I think I'm good though. But my main young player that I really like is from the Phillies. I like Andrew Painter a lot. I saw what he did in spring training before he got injured. And I think once he comes back from that injury, hopefully sooner than later, I think he's going to make a big impact in the Phillies rotation.
All right, sounds good. Does anybody want to give me information on Gunnar Henderson? Because he is the favorite in the American League for the thing. If not, the fact that Orioles have 2 stellar prospects, number 1 prospects, back-to-back years is impressive for their organization because it's been a while since the Orioles have been good. William, I know you're the only one here that's a fan of the American League. Are you afraid of the Orioles in a couple years? Because they're both young and upcoming teams, they're an upcoming team just like Seattle. How good could the Orioles be with Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson in a few years, you think?
Yeah, I really see Baltimore as just a year behind the Mariners because they had their big breakout year last year, kind of like how the Mariners in 2021, surprised everyone. And I think that although the Orioles are already a hitting-oriented team, Gunnar Henderson is going to just take that to the next level. I mean, Volpe's good. don't get me wrong, AL East, plenty of good prospects there, but I actually, hot take, I think Gunnar Henderson here, he's got Volpe beat.
Yeah, I don't know if that's much of a hot take
I
considering
just
what
like
the
his
rankings are.
mechanics, his swing. It's
beautiful. Yeah. So Gunnar Henderson's going to be awesome in Baltimore. Awesome. So awesome young players. We'll get to our official Rookie of the Year votes in a second after this next topic, which is our prime time preview. But this time we're not just previewing one matchup. We're previewing the division matchups. What are some of the most exciting division matchups we have going into the year? We're going to go division by division. We're not going to talk about all the teams because we'd be here all night. And there's certain teams that, well, they're just not worth talking about. I can talk about them, say a quick thing, but let's start. You know what? So we don't have to hear William talk for an hour and a half later in the show. Let's start on the AL West now. We'll get to William's thoughts at last because we want to save the best for last. This is obviously the division he's most invested in. But the Rangers have spent a lot of money. The Mariners are young and up and coming. The Angels literally have the two best players in baseball on the same exact team. It is a heck of an division, and I haven't even talked about the defending World Series champion Houston Astros. Oh, yeah, then there's some team in Oakland that has a terrible ballpark that I hope eventually moves or gets a new ballpark. But that's neither here nor there. So let's start with Alana. Alana, the AL West, talk about the matchups. They have 3, 4 possibly very good playoff teams. Talk about them.
So I feel like every year in the ALS, we're always like, yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to have the Astros and the Angels and the Mariners and even the Rangers last year we thought were going to be better. And then I feel like for years now, we've just been disappointed. I really hope we're not. I would love to see success from the Angels, especially because Shohei Ohtani is on a contract here looking for a lot of money. He's going to get it either way. But if he can go, I don't even know how you can say he can be any better, but he does get better. That Angels team with Mike Trout, if Anthony Rendon is successful and not injured, this could really be a tough team. And then we have the Rangers who signed Jacob deGrom. You know, as a Mets fan, I've seen the ups and downs of Jacob deGrom. But then other than that, with the Rangers, I really don't know how successful they're going to be. I do like the Mariners. I do. I think they have some really great potential, both pitching and in offense. But it's going to be tough to beat the Houston Astros yet again. I really like Dusty Baker, what he's done with that team after the whole cheating scandal. He's really been able to turn it around. So I really am looking forward to all the Astros and Mariners matchups this year.
It's going to be a blast to watch the Astros and Mariners go at it all year long. I mean, as a South Jersey person, I really hope Mike Trout gets back to the playoffs. We'll see what happens. We'll get to our playoff picks later in the episode. Julia, now that you have a computer that works, I get to hear your thoughts out west in the American League.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with a lot what Alana said. I think the Astros, I think they do come out on top this year, but it's not going to be close. I think that the Mariners are definitely going to compete with the Astros, the Angels, with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. They look really good this season. And now that the Rangers have Jacob deGrom, I think the Rangers could make a splash in this AL West. And I think it could come down to those last games in September and August for the division win for the AL West. And I don't think the Astros have as easy of a ride as they did last year.
All right, sounds good. Sam Bailey, how you feeling about the West, bud?
So the West, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't see anybody beating the Astros. The Astros are the best team in baseball. I don't think it'll be close. I think the Mariners will be second place, and I think the Rangers will finish third. The Rangers just spend too much money not to be good. It was kind of like the Phillies a few years ago, how they spent all that money on Bryce Harper. They traded for JT Realmuto, and they finished 82-80. But the Astros, they're just a very well-rounded team. The Mariners, obviously, you want to see more production from Julio Rodriguez. You know, you want to see him make the superstar leap. Like a 25-25 season from him last year was just incredible. And I feel like he has more to offer. Like, he is incredible. But AL West, it's the Astros.
All right, sounds good. So, William, all right, we got a timer set. I got to make sure you don't talk for an hour here because I know you can talk all day on the West. So, can your Mariners overcome the stellar team that the Astros just got rid of their best pitcher, and their pitching staff is still one of the best pitching staffs in baseball.
You know what? No, not this year. It's not happening this year. It's happening probably in a couple years from now, but not now. But I will tell you this, the Mariners are a scary team if all of their pieces click. They got young guys like Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert. That is a great young core. And while I think it's going to be really scary in the years to come, I just think not quite yet. I mean, the Rangers, they spent a lot of money. I really see them and the Angels fighting for third and maybe the third AL wild card, but I don't think either of them are like full playoff teams. The Angels obviously have a lot of holes to address and obviously injury concerns with Anthony Rendon. Mike Trout is starting to get a little bit older. Might he slow down? And of course, back to the Rangers, they have I forget how to pronounce it, but it's Josh Young or whatever. Yeah, he is. I see him breaking out. I think he's going to be certainly an X factor for the Rangers, but I really can't see either of them winning more than 89 games, which is why I think it's pretty clear cut.
All right, so I'm going to ask you one last question because you actually didn't talk about the Mariners as long as I thought you would. If the Mariners are to win this division, obviously we know about J-Rod. He will probably step up, and now with the new stolen base rule and everything with the pickoff, so he might go 30-30, 40-40. Who knows? What needs to click in the Mariners to overtake the Astros? Say the Astros win 99 games. What would it take for the Mariners to win 100?
Honestly, it's the pitching rotation because that rotation is already pretty good. It is pretty much consensus top like 4 in the AL. And I think that if Logan Gilbert and George Kirby both click, then that could have the potential to take the Mariners like just into a World Series contender tier. And of course, not only does the pitching rotation have to click, but Jared Kelenic also, people kind of forgot about him after he was pretty bad the last couple of years, but he did a lot in spring training. He fixed up his swing. He's a lot more muscular now. I think that right now is a better time than any for him to have a breakout year. And then finally, Cal Raleigh, like he also broke out last season. He's going to continue to get better. And of course, Julio, we know he's going to get better. I can see him winning 2, 3, maybe even 4 MVPs in his career.
Yeah, once Shohei goes out of the AL, maybe it'll be halfway through this year. Just show of hands real quick. Who thinks Shohei Ohtani's finishing the year with the Los Angeles Angels? All right, so we have 3 finishing. William, you think Shohei's getting traded during the season? No?
I think he's getting dealt at the deadline to an NL contender. I think it's going to be someone with a serious prospect package because if the Angels look like they're not making the playoffs this season, I see them just going into a full rebuild. Like it's what's best for the Angels organization. They've got aging players and not really the best farm system.
I will trade all 3 of the farm system teams that the Phillies have for Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout if they want to leave, okay? Sounds good. All 3 of their teams. The whole entire – then we can send them every prospect we have. All right. Understandable. Sounds good. So we'll see what happens out west. Houston, obviously fantastic and defending World Series champions. Let's go to the Central, which was a surprising World Series pick by our special guest, Joe Basile. Sam, we'll start with you in the Central. Is it the Guardians who are a trendy pick to maybe be an outside World Series team? But apparently so are the White Sox. Who knew? I have something to say to Alana when we talk to her about these AL Central that I kind of have to laugh about a little bit. But go ahead, Sam. What do you think about the Central?
All right, first off, that White Sox pick, that was absurd. They're nowhere near the playoffs. They're just so depleted. You can't rely on their players. But enough about that. I think it's the Guardians.
Well, they were 81-81 last year, and the Phillies were a 500 team the year before they got to the World Series pretty much. So we'll see what happens. So go ahead, continue with your Guardians.
But the Guardians, so they were a 90-win team last year. Yesterday they extended Andres Jimenez, and then obviously you have Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez is going to be their team MVP. You have their amazing pitching, and they're just a solid team. They hit for contact. You have Jose Ramirez in the middle of the lineup that brings everybody home. They're in a weak division, so they're going to rack those divisional wins. The only person I see contending them is the Twins, who re-signed Correa. They really finished third place, but obviously they got him back. And I just think that the Guardians, they're too good not to make it. They're too good not to win that division. And I mean, that's pretty much it.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I mean, they have some pretty bad teams in that division with the Royals and the Tigers. Alana, the thing I wanted to say to you is, well, there's a guy playing in the AL Central that we all thought was a Met at one point. I mean, that was the second team we thought he was going to join, but he wound up in Minnesota. Do you think Carlos Correa can help the Twins enough in the AL Central to make them contenders, or the Guardians going back to back?
Yeah, I just don't think it's enough. He's an amazing player. I really wish he was getting ready in Miami for tomorrow, but he's not. The Twins, they have Carlos Correa, and that's about it. I agree. I just think it's the Guardians. I mean, I've seen Jimenez, I've seen Rosario when they were with the Mets, and I really liked Jimenez from the start. It's great for him getting that contract extension. And then, yeah, the pitching, but I think they just lost Tristan McKenzie for 2 months, which may be a little tough. But other than that, they still have some amazing pitchers. And I really think compared to some of those other teams, like Royals aren't really going to be having a great year, even though they do have some great young talent. I just don't think it's it right now. And same thing with the Tigers. They're just not quite there yet. White Sox have the potential. It definitely was a surprise World Series pick earlier, but yeah, I just think it's the Guardians. They were able to have a really great playoff run. I know that they had that wild extra innings game in the playoffs. They really were able to show that they're serious contenders.
Yep, sounds good. I mean, the Guardians have one of the best, maybe the best all-around hitter in baseball to anchor their lineup. So, William, we'll jump to you real quick on this one, the AL Central. How do you see it kind of shaking out? Who's going to be the stars? One thing I want to ask you, because we did just talk about rookies, and there was a big rookie last year for the Royals. He was like the third rookie in the AL. It was J-Rod. It was Adley Rutschman. Bobby Witt Jr. Was supposed to be a big deal. I don't think he's going to get the Royals to the top of the division, but how do you think he helps them maybe rise up the division?
I mean, the Royals, it really, they're a team that honestly kind of hurts me to watch. Like, they have Bobby Witt Jr. and who else, honestly? Like Salvador Perez, he's getting older. Zach Greinke, he's at like the twilight years of his career. Like, he's not going to do enough for the Royals to take them out of fourth in the division. I see them finishing with like 73, 74 wins. And although he's going to be good, he's just not good enough. Now, I think the division is pretty clear cut because it's obviously going to Cleveland. And I'll tell you why. People need to stop sleeping on the Guardians. I think that they could win 93, 94 games this year. They're not only going to win the division, but they are also kind of a threat in the playoffs. I mean, you look at that pitching rotation, it's young and it's good. Just like the Mariners, you know how I'm so big on their pitching rotation. The Guardians are very similar, and I can see their pitching rotation carrying them to yet another divisional title. In addition, their offense is nothing to sneeze at. You've got Jose Ramirez, who is usually an AL MVP contender. You've got Andres Jimenez, super underrated guy, and then you got a bunch of other guys that no one really talks about. I mean, you got Ahmed Rosario at shortstop. He is no joke, and although he may not be a truly elite, I think that he's still pretty good. And the Guardians' offense is, especially with as well, talking about young guys, we've got Steven Kwan as well. He's going to improve. The Guardians' offense is getting better. Their rotation's getting better. The Guardians are going to be a considerably better team and a force in the AL for years to come.
All right. They won 92 games last year, so 93, 94 might be an understatement of what they're capable of doing. Julia, quickly with the AL Central, because I'm going to have you bat lead off for the AL East.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone here. I think it's the Guardians this year. I think they are the most competitive in this division for sure. I think their pitching is what's going to really pull them over for sure. I think pitching is one of the biggest ways teams win games usually. Sometimes there's those low scoring games, and you need your pitchers to do well. And I think that's what the Guardians have, and you can't overlook their offense either. Their offense looks really good as well this year, and I think the Guardians do win this division.
All right, sounds good. So let's move to A division that you honestly, if at the end of the year, any 5 of the teams won the division, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it wouldn't blow my mind. Boston finds a way to all of a sudden be good every 3 or 4 years. They jump from last to first. The Rays are always great at developing talent. They might be a little bit down this year. The Orioles had the best record in the AL East after Adley Rutschman came up last year. The Blue Jays are talented and stacked, and if Vlad Guerrero doesn't have another down year for him, they could be there as well. And of course, well, there's the evil empire of the New York Yankees. Julia, like I said, I'll let you lead off for this one. The AL East, there's 5 teams that could be good. How are you feeling about it?
I feel that this is the most competitive division in baseball. I don't think there's any doubt about it. There's 5 teams that can all, as you said, make a run for the win the division and make the playoffs. It can go out to anybody. I think the Orioles look really good with their young talent up and coming. I think the Blue Jays, they have a really solid lineup. They have really good pitching. They have guys like Manoah, and they also have a good closer in Jordan Romano. And if that offense can stand out for the Blue Jays, I think they look really good to at least make the playoffs, if not win the division. The Yankees are the Yankees. They've been doing really well. They have Aaron Judge. Now they have the rookie Volpe, and now we got to also look at the Rays. I think the Rays pitching is still a solid rotation, and I don't think there's a bigger competition in baseball right now than the AL East. I think it goes to anybody.
Yeah, it'd be crazy if 3 of their teams, heck, if 4 of that teams in that division made the playoffs, especially with the balanced schedule this year, which we haven't even commented on. Maybe we'll touch on that in a little bit. Happens. It'd be crazy if 4 teams from one division made the playoffs. Alana, how are you feeling about the East?
Yeah, I agree with Julia. I think this is going to be one of the most intense divisions that we're going to see this year. I think I'm going to start with the Orioles. Orioles have just been not good the last few years. I feel like every year we're like, okay, AL East, oh yeah, and then the Orioles. But this year they're back in the conversation. I think we're going to really be able to see some great offense. But my only issue with them is the pitching. I just don't think they're going to be really up to par to make a long run. But they are definitely on the positive horizon. So Orioles fans should be very happy right now. But then the Blue Jays have so much talent. You have Vlad Guerrero Jr., George Springer, who I feel like has not been talked about enough on that team. You have Bo Bichette, and then you have Matt Chapman, who also has definitely had a bit of a down year last year. But if he can get back up to that player he was in Oakland, this team could really be scary for the rest of that division and baseball itself. They added Chris Bassett, who, again, a Met player who I saw last year. I really liked him. I think he's going to do great things for the Blue Jays team. And it's really just a wild card on who's going to win this division. The Yankees are going to have some pitching trouble at the start of this year. They definitely are having some issues. They have Garrett Cole, but then Carlos Rondon, who they just signed. Trevino is already hurt. So I think if they can come out of the gate and just stay solid until those pitchers come back, they'll be okay. I hope maybe the Blue Jays can win this one, or the Rays. So it's not the Yankees, but the Yankees always find a way to win. Similar to how the Rays always find a way to find these great guys. Wander Franco, Randy Arozarena, guys who you hadn't heard of about 3 years ago are now superstars in the league. With the Rays, who are had one of the lowest payrolls in all of baseball. I think they should move to Montreal. I could totally talk about that for a while. But I just think the Rays could totally shock a lot of people because this year, as you were saying before, everyone thinks it's going to be a down year, but every year they think it's going to be a down year, and they find a way to shock everyone, similar to how the Red Sox were shocking everyone. They signed Justin Turner, they signed Adam Duvall, which I think is a bit of an underrated signing, but they lost Xander Bogaerts, which is a huge loss. I think the Red Sox are going to come in last in this division, but I think they're still going to have a pretty solid year.
All right, William, what do you think? How many teams are – well, we'll get to your playoff picks in a little bit, but how do you see the East shaking out in the American League?
I am actually really low on the AL East. I think it's going to be a much worse division than it's been in the past few years. I don't believe in the Yankees, and I don't believe in the Rays. And I'll tell you why. And I also don't believe in the Orioles either. So I think the Blue Jays just have the division at this point with the injuries to the Yankees pitching staff. Like the Yankees got hit with so many injuries. They were initially my pick to win the division, but after they got I think their opening day on opening day 3/5 of their pitching rotation is out. That is going to hurt them too badly, I think, and it's going to knock them down probably 9, almost 10 games. I can see. The Blue Jays do it all. They've just got a star-studded lineup and a super underrated pitching staff headlined by guys they have Kevin Gossman, they have Alek Manoah, and the rest of it's pretty awesome as well. I mean, Yusei Kikuchi is very iffy at 5, but I think the Blue Jays have the division pretty clearly. The Orioles as well, they have an okay lineup. Even with Gunnar Henderson, let's suppose, for example, Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman are really good. You see with the Angels, 2 people don't carry a team to the playoffs. Their pitching rotation, I'm just going to say it, is garbage. The Orioles have terrible pitching, and they're not making the playoffs. The Red Sox as well, Adam Duvall, he was on that 2021 Braves team that won the World Series, but they also have a really bad pitching staff and not enough bats to make up for it, so they're probably finishing with 72 wins. And then finally the Rays, underrated pitching staff, Shane McClanahan, really good, but again, their bats don't make up for it at all. They have Randy Arozarena and then kind of low at second base, but it's not good enough of a lineup, and I actually think they're going to miss the playoffs.
I mean, it's definitely possible they could miss the playoffs.
Yeah, they barely made it in 2020, in 2022, and then they got swept out in the wild card round by the Guardians.
All right, sounds good. Understand, but we'll see what happens. I mean, they do have a phenomenal young player. I just forgot his name. Wander Franco, is that who I'm thinking of?
Oh yeah, him too. But honestly, it's just
unbelievable.
Not really a good enough lineup together.
We'll see. They find a way to get there even though they're managed terribly. They find a way to get there every year. Sam Bailey, real quick, and then I'll let you lead off a division that's going to cause a lot of conversation.
So for the AL East, I think the Orioles are gonna be in last place. Obviously we saw their potential last year, but they really didn't upgrade that roster. They really only got Kyle Gibson as a pitcher, who, as a Phillies fan, I've had my experiences with him, and he's just not that great anymore. Their bullpen is also very iffy. They have a decent closer, and it's really just their young guys that are going to carry the team, and it's just going to be their lineup. And I don't think their lineup will be able to take them more than 80 wins. I see them hovering around 500. I would maybe about 75 wins for them. Then the Red Sox, obviously you lose Xander Bogaerts, which is awful. But you still have Trevor Story. You just got the guy from Japan. I'm blanking on his name. And you still have a decent...
Masataka Yoshida.
Thank you. And you still have a decent rotation and a decent lineup. They're a fourth-place team. And then I'm just going to skip. And I have the Blue Jays winning the division. I think they're just the most well-rounded team in that division. Like William said, the Yankees are going to be handicapped to start the year. They have no pitching, especially with losing Rodon, their big signing of the offseason. And Alek Manoah, just a dog. He's going to be so good. You still have Kevin Gossman. You still have Jordan Romano in the bullpen, along with a bunch of other guys. Vladdy, Bo Bichette, Alejandro Kirk, George Springer. You do lose Teoscar Hernandez, but I just think they're the most well-rounded team, and I would not be surprised to see them going very far in the postseason.
All right, sounds good. I think y'all are slightly – I know maybe it was this magic of Adley coming up last year, but like I said, they had the best record in all the American League after Adley Rutschman came up last year.
That's half the year. That's not a big enough sample size.
That's 80-some games. That's a huge sample size. But I don't know if they have the talent, but I think you're underrating the fact that you guys said they're not going to win 80 games. They won 83 last year. So I don't know.
That's going down.
Yeah, I don't. We'll see what happens. Adley's a special player. We'll see. All right, let's go to the National League. We'll skip that division for now, actually. Let's go out west because there's 2 teams in the West and there's 3 other teams that we don't need to talk about. So let's go through this one quickly. Sam Bailey, Dodgers or Padres? Who's winning the division, and are both of them making the playoffs?
Man, Dodgers and Padres, they're just so close, but I'm going to have to go with the Padres. the Padres, they have the best 1-4 in baseball. You have Soto, Bogarts, you have Machado, and shoot, who's the other guy that who am I blanking on?
Tatis when he comes back from suspension.
Tatis. Yeah, of course I forgot about him. He hasn't played in a long time. But they're just they might have the best lineup in baseball. They have great pitching. You have Yu Darvish, and then you also have an amazing bullpen. Robert Suarez, who gave me one of the best moments of my life with Bryce Harper, which was amazing. But you still have Robert Suarez. You still have Josh Hader. And the thing is, with the Dodgers, you lose Trey Turner and you don't really upgrade. You do have Miguel Vargas, who I think will be good, but I just didn't really see many upgrades from them. And they also lost one of their best starting pitchers in Tyler Anderson. So I'm going to go with the Padres.
Sounds good. William, you put the hat on. Does that mean you're going Padres as well?
Yeah, I think the Padres might actually beat the Dodgers by like probably 5, even 6 games. It's just that I think the Padres are going to be the biggest improvement of the 2023 season. I have them winning over 102 games. I think that their lineup's literally the best in baseball. There is no one not even the Astros have a better lineup than the Padres now that Jose Altuve is out. And I really just think that I'm actually lower on their pitching than most, but I still think that their lineup is so good and the pitching is good enough that it's gonna take them to the NL West crown. I don't have them winning the NL, but I think they're gonna go pretty far in the postseason.
Julia, how do you feel about out west?
I think it's the Padres this year. I really like their lineup. I think once Tatis comes back, and it looks like they're going to put Tatis in the outfield, I really like that lineup. And Tatis should be back in the next couple weeks. Once you get Tatis back, you got Bogarts, you got Soto, you got Machado, you even got Cronenworth at second. I think this Padres team is better than the Dodgers this year. And as we mentioned, the Dodgers haven't really filled that hole for shortstop since Trey Turner left. I don't think the Dodgers can get past the Padres.
Well, the Dodgers purposely didn't sign anybody because they wanted to get the heck out of luxury tax hell. That's the way they put it, because they had been in luxury tax for so long. Their luxury tax was really high. So next year they won't have that tax, and Shohei Ohtani is going to be a free agent. So Alana, how do you feel? Are you making a clean sweep? Is it the Padres over the Dodgers, or are we underrating the Dodgers who have been dominant for so long?
I think we are underrating the Dodgers. I feel like with the Padres and as much star power as they have right now, I just don't think that I just feel like they're going to fall. I think they're going to start out great. Everyone's going to be like, look at this team, look how amazing they are. And then it's just going to fall off. And it's just going to be the Dodgers show yet again. We keep seeing it, even though the Padres hurt the Mets in the regular season and the postseason. The Dodgers overall just have a better track record against this team. And we really are not talking enough about this team. Yes, they lost Bellinger. Yes, they lost Trey Turner. But they still have some really core pieces, both on offense and on pitching, that, again, I think we're not talking about them enough.
I understand. Sounds good. So let's move to the Central, which might be a really quick conversation. They have two of the best players in baseball in Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Probably the best two players at their positions. Is anybody challenging the Cardinals this year? Alana, I'll let you lead this off. We're all shaking our heads. Do we need to talk about this?
Probably not.
How many games? All right, let's just go around. Alana, how many games of the Cardinals? Who's finishing second behind the Cardinals? Let's go with that.
All right, I think this is going to be the Brewers. I really like Christian Yelich. I always had even when he was with Miami, even though he hasn't been the same player he was back then. I still think the Brewers have a better chance than the Pirates, the Reds, and the Cubs. I think the Brewers may have more wins than the Pirates, the Reds, and the Cubs combined this year. I have no confidence in those teams. And even though the Cardinals are definitely going to be running away with this division, Brewers may have a little chase there at the end of the year.
Yeah, they might maybe sneak into a wild card. They were close last year. Thank God they didn't win more games than the Phillies because, we wouldn't have had that fun run, Julia. How do you feel about the Central?
I mean, I think it's the Cardinals winning the division. But I actually disagree with the Brewers being second. I think it's the Cubs this year. I think the Cubs made a really good signing with signing Dansby Swanson. And I think this year the Cubs could get better, and I think they finish second.
All right, Sam. Cardinals first. Cubs or Brewers?
I'll take the Brewers here. Again, they're one of those teams that they didn't really lose much, but they didn't gain much. They still have the great 1-2 punch in their rotation. They still have their great bullpen. It's really just their pitching, and their offense has kind of fallen off a cliff. Again, with Yelich, he's just not where he used to be, and I see the Cardinals beating them by 10 games.
Yeah, I remember the summer of Yelly and Belly. Yelich and Bellinger were huge. 4 years ago? It seems like not that long ago, and all of a sudden they both fell off a cliff. William, how do you feel? Are we going? Obviously, Cardinals first, Brewers or Cubs?
I'm going with the Brewers here because, as you know, I am a huge believer in pitching, and I think the Brewers are absolutely spoiled with how good their pitching is. They have Corbin Burns, who is elite, and they also have Brandon Woodruff and I'm blanking on his name right now, Devin Williams. There we go. It's so good, but their lineup is so anemic that I think they can't win more than 90 games. They're going to miss the playoffs, unfortunately, but especially with the loss of Colton Wong to the Mariners and replacing him with Abraham Toro, who I think they DFA'd. I think they sent him down to AAA. And then also Jesse Winker, he also fell off a cliff the second he left Cincinnati. And although he might be a little happier back in the NL Central, I think his best days are behind him. So I've really still got the Cardinals winning this.
Sounds good. Obviously, the Brewers have two unbelievable pitchers. They were surprised that both of them stayed there. It was rumors that at least Woodruff was going to get traded, but I guess they're going to try to compete for a wild card with that. All right, let's get to the fun division. The 3 of the 4 best teams in the National League, if not the 3 best teams in the National League, if it wasn't for injuries, I would say they are the 3 best teams in the National League, would be competing in the same division. This is where I'm going to bring this up real quick. So before we get to our division picks, how much, from a scale of 1 to 10, just go around real quick, does the balanced schedule is going to affect divisions this year? Because for those who don't know, teams are playing half as many games in division as they did last year because they're playing every team in baseball for the first time ever. Before, you'd only play like one division in interleague play. Now you're playing every single team in baseball. You don't play your division nearly as much. A lot of 1 to 10, how much is that affecting the division races this year across baseball, and especially in divisions that are really competitive, like the AL East, the NL East, the AL West? How much do you think from 1 to 10 is it going to affect it?
This has to be a 10. I really don't like this at all. I love the division games at the end of the year down to the wire. One game is going to change the playoff picture. I just don't think we're going to get that. I'm going to be honest. I don't really care if the Mets play the Mariners, every year. There's just no competition there. I would much rather see Mets, Phillies, Mets, Braves more often this season than to see the Mets go out and play, I don't know, so like the Diamondbacks more often even.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, the NL East, even with the regular schedule, found a way to get 3 teams in the playoffs last year. But this could be a year, like I said, because they play outside division, where you could see an AL East getting 4 teams in the division because they beat up on every other division. Julia, 1 to 10, how much is this new schedule going to affect the Major League Baseball?
I agree. It's a 10 for sure because you don't have as many games in that division. Those division games mean everything in baseball. Yeah, the teams play other teams in the season, but those division games can really make or break a team's playoff run. It can be, hey, you just won a division because you won these games against your division rival, or you just got knocked out of the playoffs because you lost to one of your division rivals. And since we're going to have less of those games this year, I think it's going to make it harder for teams to be competitive, make that push, especially at the end if they're not playing the division teams that really matter and making the playoffs, winning the division, or missing the playoffs.
All right, real quick, Sam, 1 to 10, and are you do you like this new schedule, or do you not like it like the last 2?
I'm going to go with the 10 as well. Me personally, I'm a big fan of this because I go to a lot of games, and I'm going to enjoy being able to watch so many different teams that I haven't really been able to see in person so far. But with the division stuff, while it does hurt the competitiveness because the Phillies, who I'm obviously a fan of, they won't be playing the Braves and the Mets as often. It's going to honestly boost them because I don't see the AL as very competitive outside of the East. There are a lot of just bad teams. And I think it will also benefit competitiveness inside the division as well because the Marlins and the Nationals, who have been not very great so far, we won't play them as much. So overall, I like the change, but I think it will definitely increase the
I mean, the
competitiveness.
Phillies, for the first time ever, really feasted on the Marlins last year, and we definitely feasted on the Nationals and helped us get to the playoffs. So we'll see what happens this year. William, 1 to 10, are you happy with this? I mean,
Do
you
I
don't have to play
like
the
it?
Astros as much, which is a good thing, obviously, as a Seattle fan. But do you like it? And how much do you think it's going to affect the baseball?
Do I like it? Yes. I love seeing more teams in my home ballpark. But instead of a 10, I'm going to tone it a bit down to a 7 because I think that since it is my firm belief that the NL is just way better than the AL, it's going to tack on a few wins for NL teams and take away a few wins from AL teams. So I think without the balanced schedule, you have a lot of AL teams that are winning like even more games than I will predict them to. But NL teams are going to have their numbers inflated because they get to beat up on the AL all the time.
All right, so let's start talking about this division. The NL East, like we said, if not the 3 best teams in the National League, obviously injuries have kind of affected that. And maybe our picks would have been different a week ago because we would have had Rhys Hoskins 2 weeks ago. We would have had the best closer in baseball still in the Mets jersey for the year. 2 huge injuries to those 2 teams. Probably, I mean, closer's big, but you can find a way to go through it. But losing your first baseman is just as big. They're probably even injuries. The Braves are still the Braves. They won the division last year. Seem they win a lot. All right, let's start with Alana. Alana, let's not talk about the Marlins and the Nationals. They are who they are. How do you see things shaking out between maybe the 3 best teams in the National League and maybe the 3 best teams in baseball besides the Astros?
It's going to be really tight. I think this is going to be a down-to-the-wire matchup. I'm sorry to say, but I think the matchup's going to be just the Mets and the Braves. I just think the injury to Bryce Harper and him being out the first half of the year, basically, I just don't know if the Phillies are going to be able to recover from that. I feel like him missing is going to damage the amount of wins they have before the All-Star break. And to be able to bounce back from that, even with Bryce Harper being back after the All-Star game, I just don't know if they can do it. And then you have the Mets and the Braves. And are we making division picks?
I mean, yeah, feel free.
So as much as it hurts me to do this, I have to take the Braves. I have more confidence in what they've been doing, how they've been building their system. The Mets losing Edwin Diaz is huge. I'm worried how many games they're going to blow because of their bullpen. I've seen it so many times, over and over. Their bullpen has had so many issues in the past years. I just think Braves are doing it right.
All right, William, I know you don't like the Braves for some bizarre reason. As a Seattle fan, you should have nothing against them.
I hate the South.
Oh, okay.
That's why I hate the Braves.
All right, I'll accept that. But they are maybe not World Series wise because they've won one recently, but they're maybe the best run in the best run franchise in Major League Baseball. How do you feel about this division and them versus the Mets and the Phillies?
I'm going to be real with you. The Braves, they got worse. I know they have Sean Murphy, but William Contreras was pretty good as well. That's something we neglected to mention when we were talking about the NL Central now that he's on Milwaukee. But they don't have a good shortstop anymore. Dansby Swanson left for Chicago, and now what are they left with? I mean, the Braves have, of course, they've got Spencer Strider. He's going to get better. Michael Harris II, he's going to get better. But I mean, really, I think that they had a worse offseason than the Mets. And since the Mets had not only a better offseason, but also were tied with the Braves for number of wins in 2022, I think it's pretty logical that the Mets end up taking the division. And although I don't actually see much regression from the Braves, I think they're only going to win one less game because the progression from the young guys is going to offset that. But I have the Mets taking the division because I think their lineup's actually better and their pitching rotations are close enough.
All right. So let's get to the 2 people that are fans of the team we really haven't talked about much, and that's because, Bryce Harper being out really wasn't that big a deal because they just signed Trey Turner. And he could make up for Bryce Harper to an extent when it comes to WAR, at least in my mind. But then Rhys Hoskins also went down. And now Trey Turner, I don't think Trey Turner can make up for both of them. But Sam Bailey, what are you thinking about the Phillies? What do you think about the Mets? What do you think about the Braves? And the one other thing I can say, William, is never doubt the Braves. They always do what they do.
All right, so the Phillies, they will not win the division. It is too competitive, and like you said, with losing Rhys Hoskins, who was big, 30 home runs, he's always been a guy that will give you that. And then obviously, probably the most clutch hitter in baseball, and Bryce Harper. Not having those two for a big extent of the season will definitely hurt you. But they upgraded the pitching, especially that rotation, even though you lose Ranger and Andrew Painter for a little bit at the beginning of the season. But especially in that bullpen, they got Craig Kimbrell, they got Matt Strahm. They really revamped that bullpen. But the Braves, their young guys are just so good, and they're just going to find a way to just string together wins, and they're just going to go on streaks. And I just think that they're too good not to win the division again.
All right, Julia, are we making it 4? Or go ahead, Sam.
No, that's pretty much all I had to say.
All right, Julia, are we making 4 for 4? Or no, actually, we even picked the Mets. Are you going with the Braves, or are you going with the Mets? Or are you going with the Phillies?
Unfortunately, I have to say it's going to be the Mets this year. I think the Braves didn't do enough this offseason to get up to that point. Do I think the Phillies can make an impact? Absolutely. I think once Harper comes back, I think they can definitely get up there. I think they could pass the Braves. I think they can get second place in the East. I think the Braves end up finishing third in the division, with the Mets finishing first. I like the Mets, despite them losing their closer. I hate the Mets, but I think they're better than the Phillies right now. But I wouldn't count the Phillies out making a tough run at the end against the Mets, especially when Harper comes back.
All right, sounds good. So our next topic of conversation, because we'll get to our full picks in a second, is usually our quick hit conversation, our quick question. So today we're going to go through this really quick. I just want your picks. I don't need much background. Awards analysis, who's winning the major awards this season. That's all I need from you. You're going to tell me real quick who you have winning. If it's a surprise pick, I'll ask you another question, maybe why you're going with that person. Let's start. We're going to go Rookie of the Year, ALNL, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, and then Cy Young and then MVP. So let's start with Rookie of the Year, ALNL. William, you have the reigning AL Rookie of the Year. Who's winning it? Who's winning the Rookie of the Year this year?
I'm going with Gunnar Henderson. He's just that good. I got Shane McClanahan at Cy Young and Yordan Alvarez for MVP.
All right. So what about the NL? How are you feeling with those?
In the NL, I think the Rookie of the Year is going to be Corbin Carroll, Cy Young, Corbin Burns, and I see a massive season coming out of Pete Alonso this year. He's winning MVP.
Wow, I'm not surprised. He's had a stellar first half last year. So
Dude drops 40 homers every season. Why not make it 50?
Yeah, he could definitely do that this year. We'll see what happens. His batting average might go a little bit with a shift. We'll go from there. So awesome. It's a year for Corbins in the NL, apparently. Sam Bailey, how are you feeling with the Rookie of the Years, Cy Young's, and the AL and NL MVP?
Yeah, so for Rookie of the Year in the AL, I'm going to stick with Volpe. I'm kind of hung on AL Cy Young, but I'm going to go with Kevin Gausman of the Blue Jays. And then for the MVP, I'm going to go with Jose Ramirez of the Guardians.
In the NL, William, who did you say for the AL MVP? Just remind me.
I said Yordan Alvarez.
Okay, sounds good. And then
of the Houston Astros.
Yep. And then Sam, you said.
And then in the NL, for
AL MVP.
Sorry. AL MVP Jose Ramirez.
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead.
And then in the NL, I'm going to go Corbin Carroll as my Rookie of the Year. I'm going to go Corbin Burns as my NL Cy Young, and I'm going to go with Trey Turner as my MVP.
If the Philadelphia Phillies make the playoffs and Trey Turner is not the MVP, I'll be blown away because he kept them in it for the first half until Bryce gets back. Julia.
I'll start with the NL. I'll start with the NL Rookie of the Year. I'm gonna take the Cardinals rookie. I'm gonna take Jordan Walker, and then for MVP, I'm gonna take Trey Turner, and for Cy Young, I'm gonna take Corbin Burns.
Okay, so Corbin across the board so far. Go ahead, Julia. AL.
And then for AL, I got a crazy pick here. I think MVP and Cy Young are going to go to the same player. I think Shohei Ohtani is getting both awards in that field right there.
Okay.
And
then Rookie of the Year?
And then for Rookie of the Year, I got Volpe.
All right, I was going to say, if no one says Shohei Ohtani for MVP, I mean, Shohei Ohtani either gets hurt or gets traded. Go ahead, Alana.
All right, yeah, I agree with Julia. I think Shohei Ohtani is going to get AL, Cy Young, and MVP. There's just no competition there. If he has an outstanding year, there's no one else that can match up to that. And then for Rookie of the Year in the AL, it has to be Gunnar Henderson.
All right. And NL?
NL, I'm going to say Kodai Senga for Rookie of the Year. I really hope he can have a breakout year for the Mets. It's really what they need, and I'd love to see it. Then MVP, I think I like Nolan Arenado this year.
Good pick.
And then Cy Young, this one was tough for me, but I think it's either going to be Corbin Burns. I like Max Scherzer. Like Justin Verlander, I feel like everyone really liked, great season last year. But let's see if Max Scherzer can do it. I'd love to see it.
All right, obviously a couple Mets picks there. Yeah, the two, William and Sam, AL MVP. It took a guy to hit the most home runs in the history of the American League to beat Shohei Ohtani in MVP. Now, if you don't think he's going to win Cy Young, I can completely understand that. But that man deserves MVP every single time unless he falls off the planet.
I think the reason he's not winning MVP or Cy Young is because he's getting dealt at the deadline, as I said earlier, to an NL contender.
Yeah, understand. So that's a legitimate reason. Understand. Like I said, he had to fall off the planet. He literally would be falling off the American League planet to the National League. All right, so now the time we've all been waiting for. It is time to pick it. Who's making the playoffs? I want all of your playoff teams, all their champions. We kind of went through them for the division champions. Who you have making the wild card? Who's winning each league? Who's lifting that trophy at the end of the year? All that kind of stuff. We saw with this new expanded playoff, obviously last year, the Phillies making to the championship. So you don't necessarily need to win your division or have them be the best team in baseball in the regular season to win the World Series. Let's see what happens. Julia, let's go with you. Starting the American League, who do you have winning each division? I think I can probably go through the divisions and tell you if I can remember who you said. And who do you have winning in the wild cards?
So for my division winners, I got the Astros in the West, I got the Guardians in the Central, and I'm gonna say the Yankees in the East. I think the Yankees are still gonna come out on top, but it's not gonna be as close. I think it's gonna be definitely close for sure. Wild card, I think we're gonna see all East teams this year. I think we're gonna see the Blue Jays and we're gonna see the Orioles, and I think we might see the Rays too in that wild card.
All right, I know William's not happy about that because you didn't mention his Mariners. So since you didn't, I'm gonna let William mention his Mariners because I know he probably has them making the playoffs because they're a very good young team. William, who are your division winners? Who are your wild cards in the AL?
All right, so AL 1 seed goes to the AL West division winners, the 102-60 Astros. For the 2 seed, I have the 94-68 Blue Jays in the East. And in the 3 seed, I have the 93-69 Guardians. Finally, for the wild cards, I think the Mariners make the number 1 wild card, but with a 95-67 record. For the second wild card, it's the 89-73 New York Yankees, and in the third wild card, it's the 88-74 Texas Rangers. In the NL, the one seed.
We'll wait on the NL. We'll get the NL next. All right, Sam Bailey.
All right, so in the East, I'm going to go with the Blue Jays as my winner. In the Central, I'm going to go with the Guardians as my winner. And in the West, I'm going to go with the Astros as my winner. My 4 seed is going to be the Mariners. My 5 seed is going to be the Yankees. And my 6 seed is going to be the Rangers.
All right, you get the Rangers making the playoffs. Alana, how about you?
All right, I have Yankees, AL East, Astros in the AL West, and then Guardians in the AL Central. Wild card, I think it's going to be the Blue Jays, the Mariners, and then, you know what? Let's do a little curveball here. Let's say, all right, let's say the Angels.
All right, Shohei and Trout finally making the playoffs. I really hope so because what would be, we saw them face each other in WBC. What would be better to see the best 2 players on the planet in the playoffs? It'd be great to see. All right, let's go NL. We'll start with Sam Bailey. What do you have for the National League?
In the East, like I said, I'm going to go with the Braves. In the Central, I'm going with the Cardinals, and in the West, I'm going with the Padres. My 4 seed will be the Dodgers. My 5 seed will be the Mets, and my 6 seed will be the Phillies.
All right, second straight year for the Phillies being the 6th seed. Julia.
So for my division winners, I got the Cardinals in the Central, I got the Mets in the East, and I got the Padres in the West. And then for my 3 wild card teams, I got the Phillies, I got the Braves, and I got the Dodgers.
So the same. So far we've had two people say the same exact 6 teams we had last year, just in slightly different order. William, are you mixing it up, or is it the same 6 teams as last year?
I think that it's also probably going to be the same 6 teams. I have the 1 seed New York Mets at 106.56, the 2 seed San Diego Padres at 104.58, and the 3 seed St. Louis Cardinals at 92.70. Finally, my 4 seed is the Atlanta Braves at 162 for the first wild card, the 95.67 Phillies, and the 92.70 Dodgers.
All right, Alana, are you going to buck the trend, or are we going a clean sweep of the same 6 teams from last season?
Yeah, it's going to be the same. I have the Cardinals in the Central, Dodgers in the West, and then Braves in the East. And then for the wild card, it's going to be the Mets, the Padres, and I guess it's going to be the Phillies, even though I'm not as confident on them. I just don't think anyone else is really going to beat them out. Maybe the Giants. Maybe we'll have the Giants in there, though.
Yeah, we'll see what happens out west. They're really good 2 years ago, but who knows? But if the Phillies can stay alive till Bryce Harper gets back, if they don't make the playoffs, something went drastically wrong. But that first half is going to be tough. So, all right, we have your division picks. We know who you all have making the playoffs. Let's get to something important. Who do you have facing each other in the World Series? And who's raising the title? Let's start with Julia. Julia, give me your picks for each league and who's winning the World Series.
Man, you put me right on the spot there. I got to think about this for a second. It's definitely tough competition, but I gotta unfortunately say the Astros are going back. I think that I don't know who else can compete with them in the AL. For the NL, I'm going to take the Padres. I think the Padres can definitely make it there this year. And when we're looking at the World Series, I don't know. I think we see the Astros again.
Oh, Lord have mercy. The Astros again. I wouldn't be surprised. They are a very well-run organization. Alana, how about you?
All right, I agree. I think it's going to be the Astros in the AL, even though I don't want it to be. I do think the Astros have that one. And then I think it's going to be the Cardinals in the NL. The Cardinals have definitely had really great seasons the past couple of years, and they haven't really been able to make it far, but I think it's going to be their year for them, and I think they're going to win it all also.
All right, the NL's all-time leading World Series champion team, the Cardinals, getting another World Series to put up in their ballpark. Their pitching, we'll see how it goes. It's getting a little older with Adam Wainwright, but they always find a way to be very well run. If the Braves aren't the most well-run franchise in Major League Baseball, it's probably the Cardinals. William, how about you, sir? AL, NL?
I'm breaking the trend of Astros in the AL. I don't think they're going to make the World Series 3 years in a row. That's just too unlikely by chance. So I think that this is the year that they finally get upset in the playoffs, and I have my Mariners doing it. They're making the World Series for the first time in franchise history. Now, we're doing another curse breaker over in the NL. I think this is the year the Mets finally shut everyone up, all the haters. It's finally happening. The Mets are going to win the World Series in 5 games against the Mariners.
The only reason we hate on them is because it's hilarious how they fail so often.
Not anymore.
Apparently not according to William. Sam, how about you?
In the AL, I'm going to go with the Blue Jays. I like the Blue Jays a lot this year, and I think they have what it takes to get past the Astros. In the NL, I'm sticking with my Phillies. They're built for October. That playoff atmosphere is unmatched. I mean, I witnessed it so many times in person, and I'm just really excited to see how they perform once they're full strength. So I'm going to go with them in the NL, and then I'm going to go with them in the World Series too. Give me the Phillies in 6.
Sounds good. I would love that. I would have said I'm all for that, and then Rhys Hoskins got hurt, and I'm a little afraid now. And we have 2 pitchers that have some arm issues right now, but we'll see. Last year was awesome and unlikely, but I'm so excited for baseball to be back. I know all of you are as well. It'd be crazy if Joe Vasile was right, but we'll also be able to make fun of him incredibly amount if the White Sox don't even make the playoffs. A 500 team last year. We'll see what happens. But it's an exciting year. There's some great young players. Baseball is changing. I hope it gets exciting and gets even more in even more people's living rooms or on their cell phones, wherever they watch it. We thank you all for joining us for this MLB season preview. For Alana, Julia, Sam, and William, we are the Play-by-Play Sports Broadcasting Network. I forgot to do a second commercial for our camp, so let's do that really quick. The Play-by-Play Sports Broadcasting Camps are back for our Sports Broadcasting Camps 2023 season, starting in Dallas, heading to Miami, which is buzzing right now because of the Final Four with FAU and Miami. Philadelphia, Baltimore, Connecticut, Denver, virtual camps, 3-day workshops. We got it all heading out to LA and Chicago and Seattle and Denver. It's going to be a blast. Visit playbyplaycamps.com to learn more or follow us on any of our social medias. The Play-by-Play Student Sports Network. The best students of sports.